Remember the Crusades? When Christian Europe went around attacking everyone in the Middle East because... Well, lesser known is the Fourth Crusade, when the Crusaders went and crusaded against, well, fellow Christians. Okay, but quick recap of Crusades 1 through 3. In the First Crusade, things went fairly successful for the Crusaders, and they took a fair amount of land in the Levant to form several Crusader kingdoms. And well, Crusades 2 and 3 took all those gains from the first and then promptly reversed them, ending in complete failures. So yeah, Pope Innocent III, in August 1198, thought fourth time's a charm and called for another crusade. This time around, he had a pretty big brain plan. See, instead of taking the route through Anatolia, which the previous crusades took, they would instead take boats down to Egypt and then go north from there. Now, there was a problem for the Pope, as the four biggest realms of Europe at the time were all busy squabbling with each other, which meant their kings were too busy to go crusading. But the Pope got enough second-rate nobles to join up. So by 1202, the army was ready to set sail. And oh shit, the Pope still had to pay the Venetians 85,000 silver marks for all the ships we bought from them, and there's not enough money in the treasury to do so. So, kind as they were, the Venetians gave the Crusaders an alternative. Just sack the Christian, Hungarian city of Zara for us. When news reached the Pope of this, he was not exactly happy, so he excommunicated both the Venetians and the Crusaders. But eventually backtracked on the former because excommunicated Crusaders are not of much use. Okay, so now the Crusaders are finally going to set sail to Egypt, right? Nope. Yeah, it turns out the Venetians convinced them to attack Constantinople instead by promising that somehow this would mend the East-West schism in the church. Quick Byzantine history lesson. So Byzantium, also known as the Eastern Roman Empire, had survived for centuries after the fall of Rome in the West. Now, they weren't in exactly great shape as they had lost a great portion of their empire to the Muslims in the East, but they were still in a fairly decent shape. So the big brain plan of the Venetians to dominate trade in the Mediterranean was to simply have the Crusaders go to Constantinople and walk in and install this guy named Alexios IV, who would be fairly sympathetic to the Venetian trading interests if he was installed as emperor. And assuming everything went well, the Venetians would then send the Crusaders off on their way to Egypt with a fair share of loot. Yeah, things did not go to plan. So on June 24th, 1203, the Crusader army arrived outside of Constantinople, and Emperor Alexios III, oh, and no relation between him and the Venetian puppet guy, noped out of the city. So they put Alexios IV and his dad on the throne, but eventually realized that they were not very popular among the Byzantines, so maybe this plan is not going to work. Then yet another Alexios Ducas, came in and executed both Alexios IV and his dad, and then seized the throne for himself and promised to repel the Crusaders at all costs. The Crusaders, realizing that their plan was dead, and that they were extremely low in supplies, and decided to attack the city. And yeah, after getting over the city walls, they pillaged, burned, and massacred the entire city. After 3 days of this, they proclaimed the Latin Empire, and then split up the Byzantine Empire among themselves. The Byzantines did manage to survive by retreating to a part of Anatolia, and eventually did retake Constantinople a few decades later, but at this point the damage was already done and the Byzantines were slowly chipped away by the invading Turks, with the empire finally falling in 1453. And some Crusaders actually did end up going to the Middle East, but they all basically got massacred. So, in their attempt to wipe out the infidels, the Crusaders inadvertently bring down one of the largest Christian realms in Europe, and then helped give rise to the Ottoman Empire, which would become one of the greatest Islamic empires. Good job, Crusaders! Special thanks to patrons Skylar Weston, Ben Hughes, Zy Mandez,